Hi guys, how are you doing? Welcome to my channel. Sorry, I knocked the camera over there. So for those of you that are new to my channel, my name is Claire Thackeray and I am a shamanic practitioner, Reiki master, medium, channeler and clairvoyant. Okay, and welcome, it's lovely to have you here. Before we go any further, I'm just going to give some housekeeping and an introduction. It's important that when watching this video you understand the following. This is not a ghoul trip, okay? This is not a trip down a ghoulish lane of did you do this, did you do that? This is not anything like that, okay? The purpose of these videos, and I think there's going to be 2 to 3, and please watch them in order, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, okay? Please try to, because you'll understand why and where and why I'm doing these videos, okay? I've been told, especially this past 24 hours, I actually wasn't planning on doing it today. I was going to do it next week, and it came in this today, that today was the day for whatever reason. And I wasn't going to do it because over the past 24 hours I've had a bit of backlash on my channel. And from a video I did yesterday where basically I'd had a couple of trolls in last week and I'd had enough of it. And I just thought I don't want this because I know that this video could bring in a little bit of backlash. And I was sat here having my breakfast and I got the message, no Claire, because actually for every one person that's not ready to hear this, there are 5 more, 10 more, 15, 20, 100 people more. And even if this video reaches the heart of just one person and helps to bring an understanding and a healing and a clearing, then my job is done with this video, and that's all I want. This isn't a video about where we ask him, did you do this, did you do that? He has put certain boundaries in place. One of the things he doesn't want to discuss is Sonia, so I'm respecting that, and please respect that in the comments. Sorry, that's my phone buzzing away if you can hear that. Please watch this video in a grounded, aligned, stable place, okay? Don't watch this video if you've had a drink, if you've had recreational drugs. Don't watch this video if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling upset, if you've had an awful day, stressed with the kids, stressed with work. Please do sit down when you're balanced in a good space, okay? And please also watch with an open heart and an open mind. I also want to state before we start going into the work that when I channel, I do not allow possession, okay? And I know some people do, and that's fine, okay? But whenever I'm channeling, how I do it is, say there's us 3 in a room, there's me, there's you, and there's somebody else, and say you can't hear, say you're deaf. And there's another person that wants to say something to you. So that person speaks to me and then I relay it to you. That's how I channel. I don't allow possession. So I don't want you sat there thinking that his essence comes into me. It doesn't. He's not even in the house. I can contact in a safe space, okay? Not that there is a safe space. It's also important to know that when a soul transitions, the minute they transition, they go to spirit school. There's many different names for it. They go to a space with their guides where they go through a full life review. And it's them and their guides and their higher self, and they go through everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. They process it, they heal it, they release it, and then they go on their spiritual journey. They can then join loved ones, they can then talk about reincarnation, etc., etc. He has done that, okay? I know when he first passed, I was shown an element of his transition because I think many of us were quite shocked. 2020, wasn't it? And I know at the time people were saying, you know, does somebody like that go to heaven? They do go to heaven. The guides that go into situations like this, be it Peter Sutcliffe, be it anybody else like that, controversial figures that we deem the bad or the baddies, there are a certain set of guides that when that person comes to passing, they will go into that situation and they will take that soul over, okay? And that soul is kept separate, not in the den of iniquity or in the bowels of hell. How I was shown it was they're taken to a garden and they're actually placed in that garden on their own, and it's a beautiful garden, and around that garden are many different guides. So they could be angelic, they could be galactic, and they could also be their own personal guides. And they're just there, and it's a calming off, it's a cooling off period. It's not a place where look what you've done, aren't you bad? It's not about that. It's a time to decompress, okay? And then the guides come in and do the work that's necessary. Okay, so hope that explains. I think this part of the, I'm not sure how it's going to go. I think this part of the video we're going to be doing a little bit of chatting. I'm going to be looking at certain areas of that time where we were energetically, and maybe look when I'm going to be looking at his soul contracts with Yorkshire, his soul contracts with the UK and also with the world. Keep an open mind, keep balanced, keep the comments kind and loving, okay? And if you can't, I understand, and I understand that many won't be ready for this, okay? I'm not judging, because in a way I was like, am I ready for this? But you know what, as I've said before, for everyone that's not ready for it, there are many people that are ready for it. So we're gonna have a sip of water. I've smudged, I've cleansed, I've got some incense burning, so if you see things going over the camera, that is why, okay? So let's get into it. The weird thing is as well, when I do a channeling, I always ask them, the soul that I'm channeling, to choose the decks they want to work with. And he chose this one, the Magdalene Oracle. And he chose the Crow Tarot as well. And it wasn't until I'd actually sat down and I'd set my cards up, I've got crystals, I've got sprays, I've got incense burning, that I realised the significance of this one, okay? Because Mary Magdalene was accused of being a prostitute. Whether she was or whether she wasn't, I'm not getting into that debate in this video. And I just thought, this is a man that is going to come through and teach us something, right? I want you to put aside physical Peter, okay? The character Peter Sutcliffe. What we're going to be channeling is the higher self, and we're going to be shown aspects of his personality at different times, if that makes sense. Everyone that comes to this earth has soul contracts, okay? Everybody. It was interesting because I was sat down this week and I was like, oh, shall I do this? Shall I do this? And my guide said, if you're sat down going to channel Princess Diana or Marilyn Monroe, you'd get in and do it. You wouldn't think about the dark or the. And I said, no, I wouldn't, because actually they're light, aren't they? We perceive them as light. And my guide said, actually, what you don't realise is that everybody that walks this planet, unless you're a spangly, bright new, brand new soul coming to the earth plane, has a lifetime like this. You may not have been caught, you may not have been brought to justice, you may have held the same anger, but it was kept inside, okay? You may never know that you were this person or like this person. We have abused, we have murdered, we have tortured, we have raped, we have robbed, we have pillaged. Every one of us, because that's what we do. We reincarnate and we experience it all. And some people choose to learn certain things. It wasn't just the women, and I'm going to come to that had a soul contract with him, because they did, okay? It was also the police officers that had to deal with him, the families that had to go through this, his family. Anyone about alive at that time will have had a soul contract with that man on some level, be it to, it would have been about to learn something, to release something, and to see something. You know, back in the 70s, I mean, he started in 75 until 1980. So I've just got some notes down there. UK, Yorkshire, Leeds, Halifax, wherever, Bradford were quite heavy times, very heavy times. There was a lot of poverty, there was a lot of depression, there was a lot of goodness out there as well. And one of the things I was told as well was that some had stepped away from themselves. And there was an issue surrounding women and the way we viewed women and the way we treat women and the way we spoke to women and the way we honoured women and the way women did the same for us as well. And one of his soul contracts was to bring that up, okay? And you may say, what, by going out and murdering people? Is that how? Yes, you do, and that sounds really triggering. But these were times, very patriarchal times. I mean, if you look at the case, if you want to, after you've gone and study the case, feel free. It was a very patriarchal police force. And it was only until Jane MacDonald, who was a normal 16-year-old girl, was killed, that people were like, oh, this man has to be caught. I mean, they always wanted him to be caught, but that's when it hit home, that actually this man wasn't just going, and that's what they were at the time. These women are just prostitutes. And again, coming back to the Mary Magdalene energy, these women were just prostitutes, as though at some level we don't care about them because they're just prostitutes or they're just poor. And this wasn't the view of everybody at the time, but there was that element there. There was also the element of an underpaid, overworked police force. And a police force that was very patriarchal. And we're not, again, this isn't a video about judging that, because people were where they were at that time. Okay, so let's get into it. Peter William Sutcliffe was born on the 2nd of June 1946. He died on the 13th of November 2020. He was accused of murdering 13 women and attempting 7 others between 1975 and 1980. He was British born and lived in Bradford. Okay, Bradford is in Yorkshire. Before we go any further, there's also question marks over other women and also other men, because then as time's gone on, people have realised actually this was a lot bigger than what people thought at the time, and that there was 13 official women, but there was also other women, and including men. I mean, again, there's oceans of stuff online to look at. When I sat down, I was pulling some cards for myself to see where I'm going, and 2 of the cards that came out, and I thought, I'm going to keep them. I'm going to keep them. So the card that came out was the card of liberation. What I'm hearing was this actually gave women the freedom. Bear with me. I know at the time that women walk in the streets, a lot of women became terrified. A lot of women didn't and kept on with their stuff. Well done, right? But a lot of women pre this, sorry, my phone's buzzing. I keep getting trolled, not trolled, I'm getting trolled, but I keep getting like spam calls, ignore it. A lot of women were housewives, you know, they were kept at home. And this actually was all about a higher spiritual level, bringing up this energy of needing to actually reclaim the streets, reclaim the streets. So this was about women saying, no, we're not going to put up with this. You know, it was about women reclaiming their voice. It was about women stepping into their truth. It was about women coming forward. And yes, we had to go through that to experience that, because how else could that have been brought up? We live in a world of shock tactics at the minute, where people need shocks. And I'm not talking about the victims here. I'm not talking about the families. I'm talking about the public. That what I'm also hearing is when you've got people that are struggling in life, and life was quite heavy back then, it needed something to come in to shock people, to show people how far we'd sunk from ourselves. How far we'd sunk from ourselves as women, how far we'd come from ourselves as men. It also needed something to come in to bring out the divine feminine energy. That the divine feminine energy is within all women. Whether you're a prostitute, whether you're homeless, whether you're a criminal and you're female, whether you're fat, whether you're slim, whether you're good, whether you're kind, whether you live on a council estate, whether you live in a mansion, that the divine feminine is in it, is within us. And this was all about birthing that at a higher spiritual level. It was also about asking men, and not all men, to question how they viewed women, how they viewed people's daughters, how they viewed people's mothers, how they viewed people's sisters, grandmothers. Some men got it, and they'd open the papers and it hurt and it got them. Some men, it was like, well, they should be at home looking after the children, etc. And if they weren't walking the street, that was out there, by the way, at the time. Honestly, it was. Go on YouTube and watch the footage. They've got their own stuff to deal with. What I'm talking about today is the people at the time that got it. The people at the time that understood what was being shown to them. The people at the time that understood how low both men and women had got from themselves and from each other. Okay? Are we getting it? We're getting it, aren't we? We're getting there. So this was about liberation. And this was the prophet. I'm not saying that Peter Sutcliffe was a prophet. I'm talking about the situation was a prophet. And it's like anything in life, it's like what we're seeing now. There are people out there at the minute that are angry, that are upset, and that are just lashing out. And there are people out there that are seeing the bigger picture and the bigger teachings of what's going on out there in the world. And they're doing the work, they're doing the healing, they're learning, they're growing. And this is why I said about some people are not ready for this video, and I understand that. I feel as well, I'm being shown him actually running around the spirit is showing me running round the streets, him running around. I know he probably didn't run around the streets, but it was something was being cleared up at that time. there was something being cleared up that couldn't have been cleared up without this coming to play, okay? There was something that was needing to be cleared up. Right, okay. Fair enough. I'm not just challenging him, by the way. Can I also say that the 2 detectives that did the case are also working with me on this to try and help me understand certain aspects. What they are saying is, it woke women up. It woke women up to their right to walk the street. It woke women up to looking out for each other. They're now showing me the streets. They're taking me on the. So I'm doing. You have to stay with me. I'm channeling. I'm also journeying as well. So they're also showing me the fact that many prostitutes, women of the night, woke up to looking after each other. And it brought us, they're saying a lot of it, they brought a softness to many different circles of women back then that weren't seen on the papers. You didn't see that. And they didn't see it until they went, I'm literally going icy cold. And they didn't see it until they went over. But it did bring, it actually saved a lot of women that were going into prostitution, that stopped going into prostitution, or that were in prostitution and that came out of prostitution, okay? Because of the acts of this one man, okay? It actually opened a lot of women's hearts as well at the time. It closed a lot, and a lot went into fight or flight, and a lot went into judgment, but it actually opened a lot of people's hearts. We're still with the detectives, okay. They're saying they're also, I knew this had happened. I knew I'd end up channeling more than Peter. I just knew it. I was actually kind of warned before that it was going to be like a 3-way channeling. I will put a picture of the 2 detectives that I'm channeling, okay, afterwards. I'll put it on YouTube and I'll put it all on Instagram, okay. Let me try and get them up, so, because I can't remember the names, I've gone blank. I'll do it later, It actually saved a lot of women. Had this not happened, right, a lot of women were losing themselves. I know he didn't just attack prostitutes, he attacked, what I'm talking about is the bigger picture. A lot of women back then, and this is why this is coming out now, because as a UK, we're going back into a time of some poverty. And a lot of women had lost their way. They'd had kids, a lot of them were single mothers, and this actually brought a lot of women back to themselves. Wait a minute, I've got to look after myself. I can't stay out drinking all night. I can't do this. I can't neglect my children. I can't walk the streets late at night. If I want to go out, I've got to make sure I go out, have a couple of drinks, get a taxi home and come back to my family, come back to where I live. And it was a massive wake-up call for the Divine Feminine, and that has been rolling and rolling and rolling. We also had the energy of women wanting to go out and actually, wait a minute, we're going to reclaim the streets, and actually making women that had been persecuted in past lives, that were quite timid, this actually woke something up within them that actually said, no, I am going to get that bus at 10 o'clock at night after I've finished work. No, I am going to keep walking. And this, I've been shown a lot of the women that actually weren't prostitutes at the time, that actually still, people have said, why were they not doing this? Why did they not leave home when it was light? Why did they not get a taxi? Why did they not walk home in groups? And I'm hearing the words, why should we? And that, for some of them passed, the others that didn't pass, that went on, it was like a revolution. It was like a divine feminine revolution, okay? This also showed us what happens when we don't deal with anger, when we suppress anger, when we deny that anger is there, okay? And it was a teacher of how we deal with the angry wolf in the corner, how we deal with the angry person in the corner. How do we deal with these stories within our world? Do we just push them down and deny that they're there? Or do we get them out like I'm trying to do in this video, and like many authors have tried to do? As I'm filming this, they are also now filming his biopic. And that's come under attack by certain councillors in Bradford as a lack of respect. But we need to look at these situations within our world to try to bring them up, because there's no point saying, I don't want to look at this, I just want to channel Marilyn and Diana, and I just want to channel nice things, and I just want to do crystals, and I just want to look at the nice things in life. There comes a point on your awakening when you have to dive into the shadow, where you have to dive into your work, your country's shadow, where you have to dive into your town's shadow, because there's no point walking around being oblivious. There's no point walking around and not understanding it, because in order to heal fully, we have to dive deep, and we have to keep diving deep. And we have to have these uncomfortable conversations and get them up and understand them from a higher spiritual level, okay? Because that's the only way that we can make sense of it. In part 2, we're going to do the channeling, okay? Hope you're still with me and hope you're enjoying it. I'm going to take some water. My throat is so dry doing this. It's unbelievable how dry my throat is right now. He was another soul contract he has was for police, and for us to see how low police, and this isn't judging the police officers by the way, but to see how understaffed they were, how out of touch a lot of them were, not all of them, how, because what I'm being shown is some really nice officers that went out there that were really nice, kind men, and they would have been men. Probably a few women. I've been drawn to the males here that were kind, that were compassionate, that were understanding, that dealt with the bodies with kindness. And then I'm seeing the other side, what I'm hearing the words, the underbelly. It's almost like a reflection as well. These people had sung and they needed this reflection to wake them up, to actually be better, at dealing with women that were victims of crime. And there's still that problem there within the police service. I'm sure many people that watch this that may have had attacks in present world came across controversial police officers, controversial detectives, but this was a big teacher, a massive teacher, and it's going to be a teacher that will last forever. It will still keep coming. I'm not saying that we'll still get murders of women. We are getting murders of women until we understand, and until we can balance the divine feminine within us, and we can also balance the divine masculine within us and make peace with both, because each human being, whether you're male or female, has both, okay? They have both within us, right? So, and until we can all learn to channel our anger healthily. This man was extremely angry. Probably nothing to do with women. But rather than being taught how to channel that anger, he blew, and he kept blowing, and he kept blowing, and he kept blowing, and he kept blowing, and he kept blowing. And I feel as though at this point we're getting close to the channeling, because I'm actually being shown something within Peter's childhood. There were signs, there were early signs that all was not right there, that there was an anger, a deep anger. And again, this is not about judgment. This is not about judgment of any of it. There was a deep anger there. It wasn't there all the time. It came, it went, it came, it went. I'll see you in the channeling, okay?